Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmidty, Swanee and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, how are we?
Great.
Exhausted.
I know.
How is everybody?
Good,
After
good.
a little break.
You've been
Yes.
back from holiday and all refreshed, and then you had one story and now you're exhausted.
It was an exhausting story. A lot happened.
She was so busy. I was
was
thinking about that.
very-
She really was, because as I was saying, I've been working on this
was.
story, and there's not a lot about the crime or the crimes or whatever else compared to that. There were so many iterations of different things that she had been involved in along the way. I was like, oh God,
Yeah.
she's busy.
She really is. And
It's
I don't
big.
know how you just keep running into people who you get to do your murderous bidding,
Unbelievable.
Remember
but for
Roberta?
meth. I know, it happens all the time. I just
Yeah.
don't get it. But anyway.
But for meth. Yeah.
But for
Okay.
meth.
All right, so we are doing two in a row, so probably no news. Any news?
No.
You had me at kill my ex. No, definitely no news.
Leggy. Anyway.
I'm surprised you didn't find that song for us.
Oh, I looked it up, but then I thought the time had passed.
Oh.
It's a rubbish song.
It's not a rubbish song by the Concord's genius. Anyway. All right, so I suppose we should introduce ourselves. I'm Schmidty.
I'm Swanee.
And I'm Clarkey. And together we are
Trial
by Wine.
And what are we drinking?
Wine.
Continuation of what I had last time, so just
Okay.
move that. What about
Aldi's
you?
finest.
Tap water. Still
about you,
on
Shmi?
my same thing. Still on my lemon soda water, basically.
Is that still a first glass?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, I actually had 2 bottles of Soda Stream with me, and I'm down to a half of one left. But I haven't.
You're
put vodka-
quick.
I didn't put
Your
vodka in all of
bladder
them.
is working overtime.
I know, and I didn't even have a wee in the break, so we'll see how we go.
What? This is going to go
You're
badly.
tempting. This is going to.
I
Oh
was-
my goodness.
I was thinking. That's
Are your
why
eyeballs floating?
No. So I'll tell you a story if you'd like.
Oh, please do.
Please.
When I was over in the UK catching up with the Sunbury Massive, I got to talking about crime with 2 of the Massive, who are both ex-police officers. Yeah. Now, I'm always a bit careful about what I ask them when we're together, as you never know what they know about things, and more importantly, what they can say and what they can't say, because they are still both bound by the Official Secrets Act. And more importantly, they don't really like talking about their work. As it
Are
reminds
they going
me
to
of
do
some-
voiceovers for this
No,
episode?
unfortunately, no. I thought about
Oh.
inviting them in, but no. They're still bound by the Official Secrets Act. And also, some of the stuff that they dealt with
Yeah,
was
I know.
pretty, awful. Yeah,
Palatable.
unpalatable is the right word. And so I don't like to bring it up too much. So in these conversations, I tend to kind of just take what I can get, and I appreciate them talking about anything and opening up. And I often ask about procedure more than anything else, because I think that's probably a safe space. Anyway, we got to talking about a case that I had read about back in 2004 when I was still in the UK myself. And it's a bit of a short story, and so I've got a couple of others to pad the whole episode out. But I got a tiny bit of insight into this particular case that I think is safe enough to share. So my sources for this story are theguardian.com, the bbc.com, somersetcountygazette.co.uk, a podcast called britishmurders.com, my own unnamed source, who I'll call X, and the Telegraph.
Not lawyer
UK.
X.
Oh, no, I didn't even think of
Policeman
that.
X.
No Daily Mail.
Police
No,
person
Daily
X.
Mail. No, police person X.
Bit too high.
A bit regional, I think, probably more to the point. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well,
The
yeah.
Shropshire Times.
Okay.
It's a Somerset story. David Heel was born in Radstock, on the 6th of
Ratty.
August 1939. That's right, Ratty. Now, I don't know where in Radstock he was born specifically, but as it's a town I once lived in, I can tell you it's not a very big town. David grew up in the area and married Brenda Jean in 1967. They had 3 boys, but eventually they separated in 2002.
Was Brenda Jean his lover?
Brenda Jean was his wife.
She's just a girl.
Who said, I'll have 3 kids with you. Yeah. But something wasn't right for Brenda Jean.
Oh.
And so in 2002, they separated. So that was about 35 years of marriage. Probably
In
Brenda
2002,
Jean,
did you say?
yes. Brenda Jean was like,
Yep.
you give me the shits, you old man. Fuck off.
That's quite a long time to
it
be
is.
married and then to pull the pin. You know, normally by that point you just think, oh, I mean,
I don't know. I think if you look at statistics, you'll find that, like my mother used to say, that there comes a point in time when men become unpalatable, to use your term earlier, and they just become cranky and annoying, and you can't be bothered.
I was going to say, I don't know that it's 35
no,
years
true,
in.
true. Could be just 2. But, you know, it just I'm not going to stipulate.
Women, on the other hand, stay fresh till well into their
It's
80s.
not, it's more, I can't be bothered
absolutely.
putting up with this man-child any longer. I don't want to do their, you know, all the
I
housework
can assure you
for
men
them.
have the same concerns around women.
And like I said, I'm sure that men think that I really want to hang around this
nagging
nagging hag.
old.
That's
Sure,
right.
sure,
blah,
sure.
blah. Give it a bone, love.
However, statistically,
Anyway.
I think you'll find women leave men more than men will leave women, because it's more convenient for men to have someone who is washing their socks and underpants on a reg.
Is that right? But is
Yes.
that change based on age?
I think so. And so
And-
going back to the point of my mother,
Oh.
older women have a point in time where they
Where
say,
they just have, yeah.
I'm not going to do this anymore. I just would be happier on my own. Anyway.
Isn't 51 just as a, no.
And also children are grown up.
Asking
right? So
for a friend.
you get to that point where, well, not you get to that point, but a person may get to that point. So the kids are now self-sufficient enough. I don't have to do all this anymore.
Totally.
And life would just be more simple and easy for me.
I notice there's a massive, there's usually when you check the kids' results at the end of year 12, there seems to be before that announcement comes out, they finish their exams. Then there's the who's going to be getting divorced now because they've got their kids through school.
We're done.
And around the same time as, exam
keep
results
this done.
come in, we'll just put that in, squeeze that in there. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, we didn't want them to be too affected by this
correct.
prior
That's
to
exactly
their
right.
studies. That's right, yes. Okay. Now, I don't know if that's the truth with Brenda Jean, but, I'm going to, what's the word
So
we'd like to
after
use?
2002, he could sing Brenda Jean is Not My Lover.
He could indeed. He could indeed.
Right. Good.
No, they were separated. So 62-year-old David now was a bit adrift. And he had been married for 35 years, and suddenly everything had changed for him because he no longer had someone to cook, clean, do his laundry, etc. So he decided to date again, and he moved to Poulton in 2003. Now, Swanee, you may remember...
He pulled in Poulton.
He did pull in Poulton, but you may remember the attractive slag heap of Poulton, also known as the Batch, which you can see when you're heading from Ratty to the Poulton Tesco. I don't know if you remember. It looks like a little volcano. It looks like a little volcano.
I'm sure I've been past, but I can't remember it. No,
it's a big, and you could see it from very clearly from my bedroom window. The slag heap of Poulton, otherwise known as the Batch.
It's such a great selling point.
Well,
is this the wrong time to ask if you checked in on your tenants and place when you were in the UK?
I did, and that's a whole other story. Anyway,
when you say slag heap, is that a steel making reference, or is it to do with the people?
Right. Okay.
It's coal. So Radstock and Poulton were areas that had collieries.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
It was a coal mining area. No, it even had a little railway through there for the coal mines. And as you recall in the last story I did, Clarkie, you weren't here, Swanee, that was also a coal mining town. But yes, there was coal mining in Ratty and Poulton.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Because I remember when I first moved there going,
and slags.
What's that? Nothing grows on it. It's a slag heap. At any rate.
That's the
Batch.
The slag heap
of Poulton. That's right. Now, widely considered a lovely man, David was able to attract the attention of the ladies of Poulton and he was also a
Oh.
councillor on the parish council.
Oh.
By the end of 2003, David was living with his new girlfriend, Lorraine
course.
Harvey, and who was 53, so she was 10 years younger than he, and her son, Matthew Roberts. Matthew Roberts was an addict who lived with his mum. Otherwise, they kept referring to him as being of no fixed abode or something, and I was like, yeah, okay.
How old was he? Do we know?
Oh, I can't remember, 27
And
maybe?
what was he addicted to?
Probably meth.
Addicted to love.
Probably meth. I mean, what else are you going to
Maybe
get addicted to?
Maybe heroin.
Oh, that's expensive. He didn't have a lot of money. Don't know. Let's just say drugs.
Let's go with meth on the back of last story.
Sorry, Matthew, if it wasn't drugs. That was very presumptuous. There's something else you had.
It was definitely drugs. I just don't know the drug in
The
question.
drug that killed River Phoenix.
So that's
He wasn't
Yeah.
on the drug that killed. What was the drug that
Tism.
killed River
Oh.
Phoenix?
I'm on the drug. I don't know.
I know the song,
Drink
but
the slab,
I
drink
know.
the slab, drink the slab, drink the slab, drink the slab.
David's living with Lorraine at the end of 2003, and her son Matthew's living with them. So then, however, unfortunately, they went out for
Jesus.
a New Year's dinner. Everything was lovely. But then on the 4th of January, David and Lorraine had broken up by then.
Oh.
Sorry, just to interject, River Phoenix died from acute combined drug intoxication.
So he had a
that
bunch
sounds
of
like
shit.
A lot. It's exhausting.
Heroin,
isn't it?
cocaine, fentanyl.
I'm on the
methamphetamine.
drugs.
I'm
That
on the
song
drugs.
is-
I'm on the
is
drugs.
misleading.
I'm on the
Grammatically
drugs.
incorrect.
Oxycodone,
Yes.
Oxycontin, you name it.
Ugh.
So anyway, so we've got David and Lorraine break up. And I don't know when they broke up, but it was sometime between New Year's Eve, when they were last seen having a lovely time together, and the 4th of January. Now, what then happened was,
How do we know they broke up?
well, Lorraine moved out. It's
Oh, okay.
pretty well documented. Matthew,
Oh.
however, stayed in the house
Yes,
Oh.
Swanee, it's pretty well documented. Haven't you researched it?
because Matthew had nowhere else to go, of no fixed abode. I don't know where Lorraine went, somewhere else. And so
Back to her place?
Matthew, by consent with David, is staying there, right? And by all accounts, they got on quite well. And it reminded me of when I moved to the UK and was living with my then boyfriend. And then he and I broke up about 5 weeks after me being there. But when I moved over, my friend Shell had come over with me, and she was also staying at his house. And when I moved out, because I was heartbroken and he was at See You Next Tuesday, she stayed living there. And I can't recall how long she stayed living there. I do recall him bitching about it, but frankly, I didn't give a shit because
No.
I had bigger fish to fry, mainly my terribly broken heart.
Mm.
And she stayed there and made his life slightly uncomfortable. So be it. Don't care. And also, she didn't go on to do what happens here. They went out, being David and Matthew, went out on the 4th of Jan to a pub, and they had a pretty good night. They were seen having a nice chat, drinking some lagers, I'm guessing. And they went home that night and they kept having a bit of a yak to each other, nice chats, until allegedly David said something disparaging about Lorraine. And Matthew,
She's a slag.
something along those
It
lines.
was just a miscommunication. He was talking about the Portland slag heap.
He wasn't talking about the batch at the time. He might have been calling her the bitch, but he wasn't talking about the batch. At any rate, Matthew took great offence to this, and he got up and he punched him in the face 3 times.
Oh.
And then he leaves the room because he's really pissed off, right? And he goes and calms down. And when he comes back, he discovers he's accidentally killed David.
It's not pure accident, is it?
Well, I mean, it
Maybe
was
he's
a
manslaughtered him
booze-fueled
rather than
moment.
murdering.
Well, that is an accidental death. That is,
Manslaughtered the fuck out of him.
he manslaughtered him, yeah. He hadn't actually intended to kill him. So he panics a bit at this point, and he does what you would imagine most people who panic in a moment like this where they've accidentally killed someone. He puts
He ran.
David's body in a freezer.
Oh, well, yes, there's also that.
By freezer, I don't mean the small compartment at the top of a fridge freezer. He's put him in a chest freezer.
See, we wouldn't have one available to us. They don't realise how it's
You have to.
I've not had one since I was a child.
Oh, I've got such
We've got such limited freezer space. It
Do
would
you not
be an
understand
option
how
for
you
me.
survive?
It's a struggle.
I love a chest
We were-
freezer. Tony bought me
don't
one
get-
a few years ago, and when I was
Oh,
covering
the
these
last of the
stories,
romantics.
when I was talking about these stories, I said to Tony, I covered a few
If you're going to
stories
kill me,
where they're
keep me
only
on ice,
small.
Dale.
No, they're 60 by 90. I'm like, ours is much bigger, Tony.
We've got 2.5 freezers, so we're fine. We just have to rejig things to make room.
All right, so David's body is now in the deep freeze. He then
In his own
steals-
deep freeze, right?
In his own deep freeze, yes. He then, Matthew, steals David's credit cards and he does a runner to Manchester, which is, I think,
It's still shock, right?
5 or 6 hours up the road. I think he's just shitting himself at this point because he's accidentally killed someone. So he takes his, but I mean, they're taking the credit cards.
I may as well accidentally spend money on his credit cards too.
He's also, remember, an addict and probably has some previous minor crime charges. Anyway, by the way, I just made
Sorry
that
if
up.
that's not true. Yeah.
That's true or not. You may not have, but I'm going to. I feel like he's
sensationalize a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm editorializing there.
Well,
Anyway,
assuming he was addicted to drugs,
he
one
was
minor
addicted to
crime
drugs.
there.
I think we do know that he had an issue with substances. At any rate, he liked a bit of booze too. So he takes money and he steals about £1,300. We do know this. We do know that he fraudulently used David's credit cards and spent about £1,300
to
on
buy.
dumb shit, of course, clothes, phones, and video games.
Yeah, just to make himself feel better. A bit of retail therapy. I'm quite stressed over that accidental murder.
I'm going to go buy myself a new outfit in a video game.
Yeah, that's what to do. In the meantime, a week goes past and eventually someone notices that David hasn't been around. So they call the police on the 11th of January, who go around to the house and they do a cursory search. Nothing seems out of place. There's nothing really that makes them concerned. So they leave. A couple of days later, still no sign of David. So someone rings them up and says, look, he's still not around. So they go back and do another search. And this is where my insider information comes to play.
Right.
So according to my informant, there really is nothing to indicate that there's been a fight or anything. There's no blood, and I'm going to have to assume that in the punching of David's face, he didn't break his nose or anything. I don't know. He probably gave him a king hit kind of thing, broke his neck or something. Not sure quite how he died. At any rate, there was a good cleanup, but the police aren't really seeing anything.
Brain bleed.
And the story, what do we call that?
Making it up also.
Hematoma, contusion of the brain, whatever. So my informant says that having searched everywhere, eventually one of the police officers is in the kitchen leaning against his chest freezer. And another officer, he said, we've looked here, I can't see anything. And then one of the officers looks at him and looks at what he's leaning on and goes, have you looked at the freezer? And they're like, do you think it's big enough?
Don't be silly.
Do you think it's big enough? And he's like, give it a go. Lifts it up.
Sure
and
enough.
lo and behold,
Lamb chops.
they find David. Lamb chops and David. Yeah.
Ooh.
Jesus.
Now, as people don't normally put themselves in the freezer as a means to
Or other people.
commit suicide,
And he hadn't been wrapped up in anything, I presume. He just was dumped, was he?
I don't know what state the body
People
was
don't
in.
normally put other people in the
No,
freezer,
put
let alone
themselves in the
themselves
freezer.
in the
Yeah,
freezer.
I'm saying it's unlikely to be suicide is what I'm saying. So
Right.
the police almost instantly go, that's a bit suspicious, and
Yeah.
they take the body off for analysis. And, of course, it did take some time for a postmortem to take place and an autopsy because the body was frozen. And it was
Had to thaw it out.
fully
It was
frozen.
too big for the microwave.
That's right. Yeah, and when you're thawing out sometimes...
Did they
you
put
can
it out on
inadvertently
the
cook.
kitchen top?
I'd say they put it in a...
Sorry, the
controlled-
sink top. I meant the sink, the side of the sink.
Yeah,
don't
just
know.
I will go off to work and we'll see what state it's in later.
little bit of
Just
respect.
on the sink,
people.
on the sink. Yeah, I'll just leave it on the sink.
A little bit of respect here. No, I'm saying they took it to the morgue
Big-
and they
big
allowed him
sink.
to... I'm saying thaw
No,
in
the
a
morgue
controlled
sink. I'm not an
environment.
idiot.
It's standard procedure for the
I know.
morgue.
That's probably what
They
they
got a
call the morgue
room-
sink.
They've got
The
a room
full
of
room.
sinks.
To anyone
They've got a
offended
big
like
microwave,
this,
but
you're
not that
listening to
big.
the wrong podcast. They find this person, they did not defrost him on the edge of a sink somewhere. They take
How do
him
you know
to
that?
Yeah, how do you know that? You're just making assumptions.
I'm with
Because it wouldn't
Swanee.
be
Total
good
sync.
police procedure.
That's a mysterious.
How else do you thaw something out that's that big?
Someone has to check on when they get home from work
That
or in the
is
middle of
the
the day and
only
flip it over.
Or maybe put it in a tub of warm water to speed the process
I don't
up.
ever see them on Temu or on Facebook, but there's these things that you can
Or
buy.
the plates.
The plates, the thawing plate. Maybe they put him on a giant version of that. Thaw quickly, But
I'm
again,
crying.
I don't know how much you want to thaw someone quickly. I don't know what the thawing process would do in the context of decomposition and forensic
It is
analysis.
difficult.
Does it
I'm not saying
reverse
it's
rigor
difficult.
mortis?
No, but we've talked about how rigor mortis doesn't last forever anyway. It's just a stage in
But what if
decomposition.
you're frozen before it happens? Maybe it happens after.
Well, actually, it's interesting you should say that because lividity would be important. And so
What?
if
Yeah, I
lividity
was
is where
thinking
the
same thing.
pooling of the blood. So
Okay.
when someone is
Before
when someone-
seepage happens.
before seepage, yes. When someone dies, the blood effectively, because it's not being pumped around the body anymore,
Right,
it
yeah.
pools.
Uh-huh.
And it can give you an indication as to the position that the body was in when the person was lying. So that's lividity, right?
Okay.
Now, there's no discussion.
Obviously.
There's no discussion about David having any lividity. It's the chances are he was picked up. So he comes in, he panics, he looks at him, he goes, "What do I do with him?" He looks around, he sees the freezer, he pops him in the freezer. Probably.
So his lividity happens on the sink.
Well, it would happen in the freezer actually, because you won't freeze immediately. So if you put the body in the freezer, there's a period of time, as we all know, when we put a big joint of meat that's raw and not frozen in a freezer, it takes a period of time for that to freeze.
But I don't
totally.
get lividity in that bit of meat.
Oh, well, because that bit of meat's been dead for a long time or a period of time, and the blood has often
Exsanguinated.
been drained. That's right. So we're not talking apples for apples. We're not talking corpses for corpses here, right? Anyway, no, there was no discussion of lividity. There was no discussion of how they actually thawed the body out, whether it was on plates in the morgue or whatever.
Weird.
While they're doing that, though, because it takes a bit of time, as I mentioned, weird, I know, they detain
That's
and
where we went
question
straight away.
Lorraine Harvey. Now, Lorraine Harvey, as we know, was the ex-girlfriend, and she said,
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. I broke up. She's, I think, originally from Timsbury, and she says, and I only say that because I thought about doing the accent for a minute, but as you know, the best I can do for a Somerset accent is, "All right, me lover." So, "Oh, he's not me lover now." Anyway, so she says, "Oh, no, I've broken up with David." And Matthew, however, my son was still living there, fingers her son immediately.
Oh.
Figuratively, not literally.
Fingers her son.
God,
In a legal sense.
Jesus, I feel like that's an illegal maneuver.
I feel like having a quarter of a bottle of vodka before I did this story is a bad idea. The police, of course, then set out looking for Matthew because he's done a runner. And they asked the public for information on the whereabouts of Matthew, and he gets picked up in Bristol, in good old Bristol, not long after.
Had he been to Manchester and then gone to Bristol?
Yeah, he'd gone up to Manchester and then he'd come back. He had known associates and friends and people.
Did he still have his Xbox?
Oh, I bet he did. Yeah.
Or had he hocked that for a hit?
No, he still had it. So when they questioned Matthew, it didn't take very long for them to go, yeah, all right, and they arrest him. While he was in custody, he sported a T-shirt that read, "I freeze old people." And I'm going to have to say, he must have had that made custom. I've never seen on all the Facebook ads that try to sell me funny T-shirt slogans, "I freeze old people."
I've gone through a few clearance racks at Myer. Have not seen one there either.
I don't. It doesn't ring any bells. I don't know what it's supposed to mean. There's no reference point, is there?
The reference point is that he put David in the freezer. That's it.
Yes, but he didn't go and make that T-shirt.
No, but he had it made. He must have
He had it made up.
He must have. I mean, where else would it have come from?
I suppose. What a weirdo.
Maybe while he was up in Manchester, he had someone make
What
it.
a confession.
What a weirdo.
Initially, he did plead not guilty, but then later...
His T-shirt
But
dogged
the
on him.
T-shirt, yeah. T-shirt gave away a bit.
I don't know what he was doing. He changed his plea
Liar.
to guilty.
Liar. That's what his T-shirt kept saying.
He changed his plea to not guilty and he was sentenced to 12 years. Passing sentence, Judge Tom Crowther said, "I accept you had no intention to kill. It was an aggravating feature to treat the body in the way you did. It showed anything but respect. So that is the murder of David Heel.
It showed anything but respect.
Well, that and wearing the T-shirt, I freeze old people.
Yeah, that showed anything but respect. I think the murder showed other things. I wouldn't have chosen respect.
Yeah, okay.
Anything but kindness.
Knowing that would be a short story, that prompted,
But wait, there's more.
prompted me to look up some other, what I'd like to call this episode, cold concealment. Because effectively I've gone down a rabbit hole of looking at a whole bunch of...
A friend in the fridge.
Bodies in the freezer stories. So this next story comes from theguardian.com, Daily Mail and metro.co.uk with references from a TV series, Forensics, The Real CSI, which I think I've seen on Foxtel. And if it is what I'm talking about, I haven't seen this story, but I think I've seen that program. It's really good, so you should watch it. And, I also use sky.com for further information. So in 2015, Damien Johnston, and I say Johnston because it's got a T in it.
Makes sense.
In
that's how you pronounce it, yes.
Well, it's Damian Johnston. Damian Johnston. In 2015, Damien Johnston, a healthcare assistant, moved into a Birmingham Tower block flat with John Wainwright, an elderly man who allegedly had dementia. Damien and John had known each other for 27 years and had a, in inverted commas, strong friendship.
Oh,
John was 71 and Damien was 53. And Damien said that John was a father figure to him. I did read in a dailymail.co.uk article that an ex-housemate of Damien's said that they thought that they'd been a couple for 25 years. Dun, dun, dun. But I only found that reference in one article. Everywhere else just said that they were really good friends. Really good friends. John was a retired council worker, and he and Damien had moved in together so that Damien could care for John post his not officially diagnosis of dementia. Damien did apparently receive a carer's benefit for looking after John, which was paid into John's bank account, which Damien and John treated like a joint account, although Damien's name wasn't on it. In September 2018, John's
It's not joint, is it, by definition?
What I got out of it was that they were a gay couple, not quite openly gay, but living as a couple for 25 years, not always together, as in not always living together. When John took ill, and I feel like perhaps that was driven by John being a council worker. He retires, let's say, in his 60s. He perhaps didn't want everyone to know that he was gay. Anyway, he and his good mate end up living together because John is at a point where he needs some help. There's nothing about this that makes me say that it wouldn't be odd. It would be odd that they shared stuff. They shared accounts, whatever. Not necessarily
beds.
Administrating very well. I'm pretty sure they shared beds. Not necessarily, like the way they sorted their lives out suited them is what I'm saying. Anyway, in September 2018, John's health declined and he passed away. Damien told relatives and friends that John had sadly succumbed to his illness and that the funeral had taken place. But he didn't actually tell any emergency services or a coroner, so there's no death certificate or official record of John's death. And this is because Damien was so devastated by John dying.
Oh, don't.
And he put lots of stuff on social media at the time. He was absolutely just overcome with grief. That's the words that he used, that he wanted to keep John close to him. So he bought a chest freezer that was about 60 centimetres because we just did the whole other one. 60 centimetres by 90 centimetres, not big enough, in my opinion. So he could keep John with him.
So he'd be like this in a fetal position. He'd get quite stiff.
Well, he's going to get stiff one way or the other. So he puts John in the freezer because he wants to keep him with him. A lot of people would do the same by having a person cremated and keeping their ashes with them, but not this guy. Hey ho,
not this way.
To each their own. So as you can imagine, as time goes on, it becomes a bit harder to acknowledge that John's in the freezer.
Why?
Because
you got the mints on top of him and trying to get ice creams out from around him.
I don't think it was used to store food.
I reckon it would have been.
I mean, when you went over the top at the butcher and had to freeze some stuff, I'll just put in his pocket.
Get some sausages out of the freezer.
I don't think there was food. I think there might have been a
John, can you look after this for me?
Damien and John. Damien continued to stay at the house. John by being in the freezer, Damien by living in the
Also
house, and doesn't mention to anyone that John's in the freezer. Why would you? Keeps living there, and he even at some point had a guest staying over in the same room as the freezer. The guest didn't look in the freezer.
Was
Why
the
would
freezer
you?
in a bedroom, or did he
We
sleep
should
in the
always
kitchen?
check.
Maybe
freezer.
I don't really know. It was only a little unit, a little flat.
Yes, Swanee, if I ever come to visit and I go looking through the freezer, you know why.
Won't take you long. We've got 3 small ones. Not a big one like Schmidty. That's
Not-
when you need to be suspicious of.
Dig
Yeah,
under.
that's when you gotta
all
get
you'll
waist
find at the
deep
bottom
too.
is a series of bags of damsons because I've got all this
That's
fruit
what we're calling
that I've
them.
cleaned and frozen, ready to make jam from. In 2019, Damien, so we believe that John died in 2018. So in 2019, in December, so the end of that year, Damien gets arrested for something completely unrelated to John being in the freezer, which meant that he couldn't return to the property. And I'm really not sure what happened there, but as a result, the flat was boarded up and the power was disconnected. And Damien then went to live with his brother. And at this point, they don't make a fuss about it or they don't make a big deal about it, but I'm pretty confident that this flat was Housing Association housing. And I say that because they chuck Damien out because he wasn't the person who was named on the tenancy.
Yeah.
We haven't seen John for some time. John's not showing up. I believe there were people who had visits to the house, etc., at various points. The police, apparently, I can't remember why, but were there at some point, walked right past the freezer. But anyway, no one looked. So at this point, there are people going to do safety checks because I think they want to re-let the place. They do notice a really pretty nasty smell coming from that freezer. So they cleared the whole place for rental and they have to get rid of the bad smell. So on the 21st of August 2020, 2 years now after John has passed, a removal team takes the freezer. And it's also been sitting in that house, in that unit for 8 or 9 months with the power off. So it's going to be
Did they
pretty
not
soupy.
open it up to see what the stink was, or did
No,
they?
because everyone thought it
too
was off
scared?
food. No, they just thought it was off food. Power's been turned off. There's a freezer there. I mean,
Depending on what you eat, it was off food, but
freezer that's been turned off, it's going to stink awful one way or the other. So some poor staff member at Budget Skips Services in Exhall, Warwickshire, opened this freezer up and discovered John's remains.
Oh, dear.
A postmortem was carried out, but the decomposition was heavily advanced.
horrendous.
Yeah, which reduced what they could get from it. However, they did note a fair degree of what looked like blunt force trauma to the skull.
Oh.
The cheekbone was broken and 5 teeth were missing and the eye sockets were distorted. And it looked like these injuries could have been sustained just prior to his death. However, they couldn't prove the injuries were connected to his death or if they had existed prior to his death. So, without the ability to conclusively determine the cause of death, they're left with Damien's account of John dying naturally. Damien did go on to spend money out of John's account. He said they'd had an agreement that whoever survived the other would just use the money in the account. And whilst he spent around £17,000, that was over 2 years, so he wasn't running around buying sports cars or whatever.
Yep.
Damien was charged on 3 counts of fraud and on preventing the lawful burial of his flatmate and friend, and pled guilty on all charges. And in December 2023, he was jailed for 2 years. At the time, Judge Sean Smith KC told him, had you accepted his death and gone about it in a normal way, he would have received a good and decent burial. That is not what you did. You bought a chest freezer, a deliberate act on your part. You knew what you were going to do. So that's the story of John Wainwright, poor old man.
Gosh.
And now from San Diego.com, because I don't want to leave our listeners with the impression that cold concealment is a UK thing, comes this story. Now, this all started in December 2023 when the body of a woman was found by out-of-town relatives who were visiting, in inverted commas. And if you go back and try and put this all together, it's a bit weird. Someone found and reported a body in a freezer, which is kind of the theme I'm going with today. The woman in the freezer
qualifies for entry into this episode.
That's
so
right.
Good.
Yeah.
They've passed the entry level.
Yeah. So the woman in the freezer was Margaret Haxby-Jones. who apparently no one had seen
Gosh,
for 9
too
years.
much. Can we give her an abbreviation?
Mary Margaret. We'll call her Mary Margaret. Now, she had not been reported missing, and the neighbours in this San Diego suburb really keep to themselves, as they said they'd seen an older man every now and then, but he wasn't very friendly, and no one seemed to notice that Mary hadn't been around for an extended period of time. Now, it seems that Mary died of natural causes. She had a heart condition amongst other health problems, and her husband put her in the freezer. But
Before she died?
after she died, she was described as morbidly obese.
Oh, great.
And I'm just
How big
telling
was
you
the freezer?
that fact. I think it was sizable. And I'm just telling you this for context because I'm just going to read this article by Mike Dorfman, which came from, as I said, the NBCSanDiego.com.
When you say she was morbidly obese, how tall was she?
I don't know.
Like
She had
2
heart
foot? disease. She was... Because how do you fit into a freezer?
Got a picture?
The chest... No, I haven't. The chest freezer that my... chest freezer that my auntie had and that my mum had when auntie upgraded was, I reckon, at least...
Like one of those
I think
double
we're getting to a
width
point
ones
where
kind
this
of
is
thing.
this episode is just about you showing off about your fridge
Chest
freezers
freezers.
within your family,
When that
making
one-
the rest of us feel rather inadequate.
When that one broke, we did downsize to a higher, but that's still, and I said to Kate, don't throw that out. That's still at least 1.2 metres.
Was he a
Easily fit
Mr.
body in
Whippy
it.
Van man? Because they have big freezers too with
No.
all of the ice cream.
You can have massive freezers, right?
A gelati
The point
man
is you can
has
have
3
massive
flavours.
freezers. Yeah.
Mm.
The headline of this article is Man Had Help Putting Wife's Body in Freezer, Unsealed San Diego Autopsy
I hadn't
Report
thought about
reveals.
that, well, obviously, if she was morbidly obese.
Well, that's why I
Not
gave you
killing
that. I
herself.
gave you that tidbit
Yeah.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
So the autopsy of a woman found in a chest freezer in Allied Gardens reveals her husband threatened his friend at gunpoint to help him move the body and keep her death a secret.
Threatened his friend at gunpoint. Oh,
Yeah.
that's the most shocking part to this story so far.
Well, you see, I found this article and then I had to track back to go, what the fuck happened here, right? But this is the kind of end point of this story. So, as I said, by Mark Dorfman, and it was published, this is very recent, December 19, 2024. So it's new news. The report, so this unsealed document now from the autopsy report, reveals. The report says Mary Margaret Haxby-Jones's husband, Robert Haxby, coerced a friend at gunpoint to help him put the body into the freezer. Nearly a year after an elderly woman was found dead in a chest freezer in Allied Gardens, a newly unsealed report from the San Diego County Medical Examiner's Office is revealing new details about how she got there. Well, she didn't put herself there, I can wager that.
Not by trampoline.
While San Diego police disclosed last week they believe Mary Margaret Haxby-Jones's husband, Robert Haxby, was the one who put his wife's body in the freezer, possibly for financial purposes, the newly obtained autopsy report included previously unreported investigative details that may provide some answers as to how.
Are you gonna elaborate on the financial reasons?
Oh, she was on benefits. The autopsy or pension or
I
something.
thought there was a...
No.
I thought he was going to make money off her frozen body.
No, he's not selling bits of it.
Oh.
No, this is all about, continuing
Probably
to
still claiming her
her pension or
Claim her
benefits or
benefits.
something. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's a common theme then,
It
isn't
is a very common theme, unfortunately. The autopsy report had been under law enforcement seal until last week when the San Diego Police Department determined their investigation, which started on the 22nd of December 2023 when the body was located, inactive pending any additional or new information brought forward. Haxby himself died on the 3rd of February.
Oh.
Which year?
2023.
All right.
The
Short
autopsy
fraud.
said, so they find her on the 22nd of December 2023. Within 8 weeks or something, he's died. The autopsy report said
broken-hearted.
Haxby, I think cancer, contacted an unnamed friend roughly 9 years ago. 9 years ago.
Oh,
Rings his friend up and says, she died at 72, right, of natural causes. And he says, come here, please. So the friend shows up, he's got a gun on him and he's like, put her in the chest freezer and you tell anyone. So the report said that the friend kept Haxby-Jones's death a secret until Haxby, I was wrong, it wasn't cancer, suffered a stroke in late 2023. Only when it appeared likely that Haxby would pass away did that friend contact Haxby-Jones's family, who then in turn called 911? And I did know he died of a stroke. I just forgot. So as part of their investigation, San
From
Diego,
the stress of
all these stories
her
and
being found.
Yeah.
Was the friend charged with
maybe.
accessory?
No, I think maybe you're right. The stress of her and probably just some underlying health problems. As part of their investigation, the San Diego police contacted the Social Security Administration and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to determine whether Haxby-Jones's death had been, as in Margaret, had been concealed so that her benefits would continue to be paid. San Diego SDPD said it is unclear beyond a reasonable doubt exactly when Haxby-Jones died, so they can't substantiate a criminal case of benefits fraud.
Oh, for God's sakes, really?
Because
There's
when
at
you
least 7
freeze
weeks
a
of it.
body and you keep it frozen, time of death is almost impossible, if not impossible, to determine.
Wow, what about when she was last seen? Or did she not have any friends because she was
Circumstantially,
morbidly obese?
that's right, but from a forensic
I mean,
perspective,
sorry, did she not leave the house because she was morbidly obese? I shouldn't say.
maybe that happens. NBC7 reached out to the San Diego County District Attorney to inquire if criminal charges were possible for the unnamed friend for their role in this case. To your question there, woo. It referred us to the San Diego Police Department. At the time this article was published, it had yet to respond to our questions. So we don't know whether or not the guy who helped conceal the body and then came clean 9 years later is going to get charged. The autopsy report also goes into more detail about Haxby-Jones's death, explaining that the condition of her body from the effects of the freezer made it impossible to determine what killed her. We don't even know what killed her. However, it does say there were minor injuries to her body, and toxicology testing didn't reveal any commonly used drugs or poison. Those injuries to her body, by the way, could have been caused...
Inflicted getting her into the freezer.
Correct, yeah, posthumously moving her into the freezer. Oh, we have a picture of her.
That wasn't an easy task.
We have a picture of her. Thank you, Swatty.
Gosh.
Doing the more research than I did, she was a large lady. It also described the woman as morbidly obese with an enlarged heart and signs of heart disease. However, it said that asphyxia or smothering, which may not leave signs of trauma, could not be ruled out.
I'm surprised the other guy didn't die. The informant, or the guy who helped him. I mean, that would have been
From a hernia.
I don't know how they got her in. I don't know. I mean, as a dead weight, I don't know how you would manoeuvre that, really, to get up at a height.
Yeah, I mean, what's the height? 4 foot. 4 foot. Maybe they had a scissor lift. To quote the judge from the first case, I would say this is an aggravating feature to treat the body in this way. Wouldn't you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that, my friends...
Cool. Well, it is cool.
It is
but not
cool.
cool.
It's ice cold. So that, my friends, is cold concealment.
Well said.
Wow.
Thoughts? Oh my God, such an inappropriate. It's like a good return to form. You know, I didn't actually intend this to be a funny episode, but it's worked out that way.
Yes.
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 I'm not really okay with the dead person, like the living arrangements of having a dead person in the freezer. If I just think back to our house, if there was a dead person in the freezer, I don't think I'd want that for 9 years. I don't think I'd want it for 9 days. But,
I don't think that. Well, this was outside against a wall somewhere. It wasn't in the house, I don't think. Yeah, so the chest freezer for Mary was kept in the backyard against a wall of the home. Yeah. I get your point about the guy who kept him in a flat, but he didn't. I don't think he had any other recourse. He didn't have.
How many times
over
9 years you reckon they would have had electricity surges or, stuff happens, electricity goes out, you'd be like, oh shit, that meat's defrosted.
Well, it's not like we're going to cook it. You're just
you
going
get
to
a
read.
text
That's
message.
going to spoil
Your
it.
power is out. We're onto it.
And you'll be like, oh, fuck.
Oh, not Mary again.
That would be why you can't possibly determine time
That's
of
why
death
he had a
or
stroke.
what even killed her.
Too
Oh, we've had a
stressful.
couple of defrosts on the way through. Yeah.
Oh.
Don't lift the lid, kids. Don't let the hot air in and the cold air out.
You have a friend
Leave it
around to help
sealed.
you with dinner. Can you get the chips out of the freezer? No, not that one.
You know what happens when you accidentally defrost meat and then you refreeze it? It's all sludgy when you try and when you defrost it again. So I think there's a bit of that happening here.
It's a hard no.
And I just think over 9 years, there's a high
it
probability
sounds
that would
like
have happened a number of times.
Yeah, you're probably
Sounds
right.
like it was a bit sludgy going into the freezer.
Oh, no.
Don't you hate that? It was like
no.
everything will be ruined. We're going to have to throw it all out,
Oh, it's just
including
ruined.
Mary Margaret's body. Oh,
I had to do it the other
God.
day.
what an inconvenience.
I hope no one
Defrost
sees.
it all.
Otherwise,
Oh.
I'm going to have to go and get a job.
I went up to Eldon and there's a little freezer. It's not a box freezer. It's
Oh, just a
course
little
there
one.
is.
Sorry,
It's a little
they've all got different
box
sizes.
freezer.
Just to be clear, it was only a little
in
one.
the shed at
I
Eldon,
just-
and it had
I
food in it,
threatened
and
the
my
children with cold
stupid nephew
concealment.
had turned the bloody power source off, and I was like,
Oh.
the freezer had food in there. No, I just said Tony by accident. Freezer had food in there. You know who, Eric? So then I had to go and chuck it away.
You know who, Eric?
Eric. So you're right, Swanee. It's very disappointing.
I know.
But it's got to be, the home is where the heart is. You want to try to build something nice at home, and you've got dead people in the freezer. It's not
It's not
conducive
good.
to a
It's not
happy,
good.
long
It's
life.
not good. When someone dies,
It's not.
Why did
take their
Mary
benefits.
Margaret's husband want her there?
Benefits. It's taken all
Oh,
the
yeah, she said that.
Yeah.
Sorry, you said
benefit
that.
fraud, money.
You said that. I forgot.
Maybe that's the thing, that it was probably public housing, wasn't it? So it's not really
Not for
their
him. No,
house.
that was her house.
Ah,
In the UK.
Turned
Yeah.
out, no, Mary.
right.
That was Mary Margaret's house. Her parents.
Not
had given-
his?
No, not his.
He did you dirty,
yeah.
Mary Margaret. He was a feeder.
Oh,
he
all
was
right.
a feeder.
That's
No.
I'm with you.
That's a component of the story that hasn't been explored. We don't know. So, what do we think about? I don't even know what the theme of my body's in the freezer, but
My biggest is how to get them in there. Even if I was at gunpoint, I don't think I'd be able to deliver against that. Getting the purchase, I don't know.
oh, it'd be hard. You're right. Yeah.
I think it's almost worse to live with someone in your freezer than it is to commit benefit fraud. Like, I know that's what they get charged with, but it's not okay to have someone in your deep freeze.
Do you remember we did that story? Well, Swanee did it about Bernie. Yeah. You remember he shot his female benefactress who'd he'd been living with. Can't remember his last name.
No bells are ringing.
Come on, Jack Black played him in the film Bernie. You did it.
Yeah.
I remember
yeah.
Jack
With
Black
the armadillo
in an
gun.
episode.
He shot her and
Yeah.
then he's cracked it because she was horrible to him. And he shot her and he put her in the deep freeze. And she'd been there for ages. He spent all her money. Remember, the community was half and half about him being this lovely guy.
Fabulous. Yeah.
And he
yeah.
used her
Oh,
money
yes.
for good causes
Yeah.
too.
Yep. That
Was
was
he potentially gay as well? Was there something about that?
Yeah, that rings a bell too.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think putting a person in the freezer in the garage is fine, if you're going to do such a thing.
See,
But not in your house. And so
no, but
my second story, someone had to sleep in a room with that.
I
That's
agree.
worse.
That's terrible. But the crime of benefit fraud versus putting someone in the freezer is worse than the crime.
Oh, yeah,
Murder
it's
and then
desecrating a
putting
corpse.
someone in the freezer, the crime's worse than the freezer bit. But I don't know how you go from not committing crimes to going, oh, they're dead. Oh, I'll just whack them in the freezer
I
and
see what
claim
you're
their
saying.
benefits.
So the assumption is the two latter stories, they didn't kill, they just put them in the freezer. And so
Yeah.
that's
Correct.
Right,
and
right.
and therefore the having someone in your freezer for 9 years in your house or even against a fence in your yard, that's just what?
I'm going to sentence all of the perpetrators to perpetual frostbite because it's really
that'll-
friggin' painful.
Is it?
Yeah.
And a bit of chilblains too.
Oh,
Yeah.
double dose of that, if you don't mind,
I'm
umpire.
just glad they didn't end up as cold cases.
Ba-ching.
Or maybe
I might
did there.
sentence all of mine to having their future is always going to be meat that is defrosted slightly and then
double
being
defrosted
refrosted
meat.
and then
Double
yeah,
defrosted meat. It's all
double
stretchy.
defrosted. Yeah.
twice
May all
frozen
your
meat
steaks be
every
mush.
time you go to. Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
just
Oh,
mushy
gross.
meat.
Oh, no. That's a terrible
And that
one.
grey.
Swanee.
Oh,
That graying meat.
Oh, you're a cruel woman.
yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with sentencing them to a bit of Jack and Rose action in Titanic, but they're Jack on the edge of the thing.
Jack, never leave me. Oh, he died.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll
his
never
son.
leave you. Oh, I died and I fell off.
But
I'll
just that feeling of being so cold. and
snap his
hanging on.
fingers off and let him go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Off you fuck. Yeah.
Goodness me. Thank you for joining me on Cold Concealment. As we say every week, miss you already.
Miss you already.
Ciao.
Ciao. Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.